Today is our final day of our project, day 3, and you guys will be left to your own this evening to kind of finish it and polish it and make it ready to be turned in on Wednesday. I just have a few reminders as we start this project. Make sure you're using black ink to do your writing and your labeling. That's just a big reminder. You've been doing this the last 2 days. I hope I didn't have to remind you. And remember that we're doing this project in what we call block print, which is all caps. Just another friendly reminder that you continue in that. All right, we're getting ready to get started. Make sure to meet my expectations. You have your project and your supplies out and ready to go. All right, so one class got to this yesterday, but we are going to go ahead and just give everyone enough time to get caught up. This is the nuclear membrane. I colored it a lime green color. So if you would pause the video right now, go ahead and label it nuclear membrane and color the nuclear membrane on both the animal and the plant cell. The nuclear membrane is this outer covering of the nucleus, and it's a double layer covering. It's got these little hole things in there, and those are actually called pores, and you can see on this diagram that they're called nuclear pores. This is going to let some things out and some things in. Remember that we talked about the nucleolus makes ribosomes, so this is a perfect way for those ribosomes to get out of the nucleus and into the cytoplasm, like the little jelly stuff that we haven't actually talked about just yet, that's floating around in the cell and then also attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So on your note page, you're going to want to write down that it's a double layer that encloses the cell's nucleus where the chromosomes reside. And if you look at the picture next to this one, you can see the chromosomes is all of that crazy yarn-looking DNA stuff. The pores regulate what goes through. It's also sometimes called the nuclear envelope. You don't have to write the last part, the last bullet point that says also called the nuclear envelope. I just wanted you to hear that term. So go ahead and pause the video now and write down the first 2 bullet points under the nuclear membrane. All right, so the next one's going to be kind of a double feature. You're going to be identifying the whole nucleus and the little squiggly yarn looking stuff that we just talked about prior to that. So the squiggly stuff that looked like yarn in the previous slide is actually your DNA, and the DNA is carried on the chromatin. And most of the time, most of the cell's life, the chromatin is just kind of an uncoiled mess inside of the nucleus. We're going to talk about what happens when it gets organized, and that's going to be something we'll talk about probably next week or the week after. But for now, I would like for you to label the DNA, and I'm going to let you go ahead and just abbreviate it. We'll talk about what it stands for a little bit later as well. And then also that hole inside of that, give that a color and label that the nucleus. Go ahead and pause the video right now and do that on the animal and the plant cell. Just really quickly, I do want to note that generally a cell only has one nucleus. Remember I told you before, some of these other organelles, they have lots of them or several of them, but I just have a diagram with just one because I didn't want your diagram to be too cluttered. But for the nucleus, there's generally going to be just one. It's also the easiest thing to see whenever you're looking at cells underneath the microscope, and that's something you're going to be doing next week, so you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, go ahead and pause the video now. All right, so what you're going to write down under the nucleus on your definition page is basically it's the control center of the cell. It directs all of the activities. It's kind of like the brain. I mean, it doesn't think, but it kind of is the brain in that our brains direct all of our body activities as well. It does contain DNA, so make sure that you write that in on the grid of definitions as well. Go ahead and pause the video right now to write that in. If you look at the diagram next to this, you'll say this, and you'll say, wait a second. Okay, like I see the nucleolus, and I see that it's got all of the ribosomes in there that it's made. So all in here are the ribosomes. But wait a second, this DNA does not look right. Earlier in the picture, it looked like a bunch of yarn, and this one is all in X's. Well, in this picture, the DNA is coiled up into chromosome pairs. You don't need to worry about that at all for at least another week and a half. We're going to talk about what happens when that does that. They're just showing you a different view of a nucleus where the chromosomes are actually paired up and a little more organized. It's surrounded by that double membrane. You don't have to write this down. It's just a reminder. And it's usually the easiest organelle to see underneath a microscope. That's just another little reminder, which you will be doing next week. And there's usually one per cell. Got a little ahead of myself earlier. Okay, so you just labeled the DNA or the chromatin. Okay, chromatin is when it's all unwound and kind of wiry looking, and it carries the DNA, which is the information. When it gets organized, it pairs up, and that's a chromosome. So on your page, go ahead and write this definition for the word DNA. And DNA does stand for deoxyribonucleic acid. Again, we're going to talk all about that next week. So go ahead, pause the video, and write down that the DNA is the carrier of the genetic information. It's basically the recipe of how to make that organism. All right, the last one, I think this is the last one. No, we got a couple more actually, but close to the end is the cytoplasm, and you can see I colored it yellow on here. It is a gel-like substance. It's a jelly liquid kind of thing, somewhere in between the two, and it's made up a lot of water. But what I'd like for you to do is to go ahead and choose a color for your cytoplasm, and maybe just color a little spot on there, and then go ahead and just label it, because the coloring of the cytoplasm is something you can do at home, or if you have enough time at the end of class, you can do that as well. So if you look down here, let's see, I forgot to put it on here. I'm trying to find it as I'm looking at this. Cytoplasm, where'd you go? Oh, there it is. Okay, so right here is where cytoplasm is labeled on the animal cell, and it's in the same area on the plant cell as well. So go ahead and pause the video and label the cytoplasm and choose a color. All right, the cytoplasm, if you're going to your key now to that definitions grid, is you're going to write down is a gel-like substance within the cell. It is about 70 to 90% water, and it's usually colorless. And basically what happens is all those organelles just kind of like hang out in there. Remember I told you that the cytoskeleton gives the cell its formation, and also kind of holds those organelles in place, because they're just really floating or hanging out in this cytoplasm. So go ahead and pause the video now and put this down for your cytoplasm definition. All right, next we're going to do the cell membrane. The cell membrane is on both cells. You have it on an animal cell and the plant cell, but I want you to make very close attention to this. On the animal cell, it is the exterior layer. Okay, it's the complete and total outside of the cell. On the plant cell, it is not. It's the barrier that comes before the outside layer. So when you're coloring, make sure you're not coloring that very outside part of the plant cell. Go ahead and pause the video right now. Choose a color. Again, you can color this in later, but choose a color for it, and then go ahead and label the cell membrane. Going to your definitions page, your key, you're going to want to color that square in, obviously. And this is just another reminder. Remember, you're supposed to be writing everything in all caps, or like we like to call block print, and you're using black ink. So please don't forget to do that and keep that up. The definition you're going to write for the cell membrane or cellular membrane is that it is a thin, semi-permeable barrier that surrounds and encloses the contents of a cell. The word semi-permeable means that it's kind of solid, kind of not. Semi-permeable means it lets some things in and some things not. And we're going to talk even more about that obviously later again. But go ahead and pause the video right now and let's write this definition in. All right, the centriole, also it's also known as the centrosome. This is only in the animal cell. This is not going to be found in a plant cell. And I've labeled it right here. And if you want to pause the video right now and go ahead and label the centriole, and go ahead and label it as the centriole, not the centrosome. Okay, the centriole is the, it kind of organizes the cell. It helps determine the locations of the nucleus and other organelles within the cell. It also aids in cell division. We are going to study a whole lot about that on Wednesday. So right now, I really just want you to get the definition of this. And then, like I said, we'll have an extensive discussion about this on Wednesday. So go ahead and pause the video and add both of these to your definitions. You're going to have to write really small. Okay. In the animal cell, we have the lysosomes, and we're going to talk more about what it does as well, but go ahead and label it right now and color it. I believe there are 2 of them on the animal cell, and then the label is at the very top, so pause the video and label that. The lysosome is like the garbage disposal. They clean out all the debris and dead or damaged parts. And there's a reason why lysosome sounds like the word Lysol. Lysol kills things, right? It's what you use to disinfect bacteria cells and other bad guy cells in your house to keep from getting sick. Lysosomes can cause the cell to do what's called lysis, and that means kill itself. Lysosomes literally can cause the cell, if the whole cell is getting old and bad, it will tell the cell, hey, it's time to be done, and will have that cell literally die. So it is basically your, like I said, garbage disposal. It's also your quality control assurance. It's supposed to take care of things that are no longer in good use. Go ahead and pause the video right now and write down this definition. Okay, now this one's going to be for the plant only, and this is called the cell wall. Animal cells do not have a cell wall. There's no way I can say that enough. 7th graders continually get this mixed up, and they always want to put a cell wall on the animal cell, and this absolutely is not accurate. Please, please, please take time to understand and to make yourself remember that only plant cells have a cell wall. Pause the video right now, choose a color and label it, and then you can finish coloring later. Okay, the cell wall is basically the firm, non-living layer of polysaccharides that encloses and supports the cells of most plants, bacteria, and fungi and algae. Excuse me. Yeah, so cell walls are not only plants, but also bacteria and fungi and algae. That's going to be super important to remember a little bit later. But the big thing that I want you to remember is that this is a firm outer coat. And we're going to talk about with plants why that's important, that it's a firm, non-living layer. The point that it's made of polysaccharides is neither here nor there. I really don't care if you know that part. So if you were going to try to trim this down, you could say the firm, non-living layer that encloses and supports the cells of, and then go ahead and list them. So go ahead and pause the video right now and write that down. All right, the very last thing that we're going to do on the animal cell, I'm sorry, not animal cell. See, look, I already got them mixed up. On the plant cell is called a peroxisome. A peroxisome. This one is only on the plant cell, whereas the lysosomes were on the animal cells. The peroxisome is on the plant cell. Go ahead and color this and label that and pause the video. The peroxisome is involved in a variety of metabolic reactions. That is like the most generic, bland definition ever. But you know what? It's an easy one. So go ahead and write that down and pause the video right now. All right, this says end of day 2. It should say end of day 3. I have a feeling you're looking and feeling something like that today. Make sure that you have everything ready to turn in tomorrow. Go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Remember, this project is literally the equivalent of 3 test grades. So when you come into class tomorrow, my expectation is that you will have all 3 of these completely finished, or I like to say perfectly polished. You'll have them all together and stacked nicely with your key on top and your 2 cells on the bottom. And I'm probably going to have you put a staple in on the left-hand corner to keep them all together while I grade them. And then we'll gracefully take that out when you put them in your nature journals on Wednesday, or it's probably looking more like on Thursday. We'll put those in. All right, take the rest of class or whatever's left of your time and finish coloring, and then finish the rest of it tonight. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.